telling people how to make minestrone soup on YouTube. So I start with a Dutch oven like this that actually my wife and I got for a wedding gift 33 years ago, and we still use it today. And you can see right now I got it coated with olive oil on the bottom. And then basically I take all these vegetables and I cut them all up, and then I saute them in the pot. And you probably do that for like, I don't know, 20 minutes or so. Then I add 2 cans of diced tomatoes, and then I add probably a tablespoon of kosher salt, a teaspoon of pepper, and probably a tablespoon of oregano. That's the secret. Then I use vegetable broth like this. But what I use 2 of these, and then I fill 2 of these with water, and then I put that all in there with those vegetables. I'm gonna use lentils, Spanish lentils, which is the key. And then once that's all in there and you get it to boil, turn it down, let it simmer for an hour, get everything softened up, and it's delicious. I like to keep a pot like this just for all my scraps. And then with the onions, you know what? I like my minestrone soup to be hearty, so I don't really chop things super fine, because the whole idea is once you let it simmer for that hour, everything kind of softens up. And I think that when you have a really good minestrone soup, a little bit of a chunk where it's something to chew on, right? So I slice it, and then I just come across probably 3 or 4 times just to get it like that, right? And then from there, you just start putting it in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this. I think I have some fresh garlic too I'm going to add in there as well. You know, the trick with the garlic is there's no such thing, in my opinion, as too much garlic. And you peel these cloves off and kind of separate them all. And, you know, the trick that I learned when it comes to getting the skin off is you take the garlic, you take the knife like this, flat on top of it, push. You see how it kind of pulls that all apart, and then that's just the meat of the garlic that I'm going to eventually chop up. And this, you know, the whole thing you hear about when it comes to making soup or anything when you use a Dutch oven like this is that by doing the the onions and the garlic first, and you kind of saute it, you're what they call seasoning the pan. The nice thing about this pan is it's been seasoned like crazy. We make a lot of stuff in there. You look at the good pans that have been around for a while, they've got kind of a brown tinge in it. You know, they've been clean, but I don't know, to me, everything always tastes better coming out of a well-seasoned pot. So I'm gonna go ahead and get all this garlic ready and then chop it up. And go ahead and put that garlic in there. Now I'm going to transfer this to the stove and start seasoning this pan. I'm going to coat all those onions and the garlic for a little bit, and now it's going to start to heat up and season that pan. Now I know I mentioned about the amount of salt and pepper and oregano I use, but I kind of subscribe to my mother's thing. I'm just sort of giving you a rough estimate. So my mother used to say, how much? I go, that much. So about that much salt. Remember, there's going to be full of vegetables here, so it's really not going to be salty. And then with the pepper, you got to be careful. You don't want to overdo the pepper because it gets a little peppery. And my 90-year-old father-in-law, if I put too much pepper in there, he complains, and I want to keep him happy. This oregano is the secret. This is where you get a lot of the flavor from. And, you know, that seems like a lot. But when this thing is loaded up, you'll see it's going to be full of stuff. Now we're going to coat all this and start to season that. And I'm going to start cutting more vegetables. Carrots, I've got leeks, zucchini. I'm going to eventually add some spinach to it and some lentils and celery. And then, as I mentioned, the 2 cans of diced tomatoes. Even this, I want the carrots to be a little more robust in my minestrone soup. It's almost like a, I don't know, like a rustic version. So I take it and I cut them in this, then I go lengthwise, okay? And then from there, give it a little angle just to give it a little depth and looks nice in the minestrone when it's done instead of just flat. You can do whatever you want, but this to me is just what you want. That kind of brown, see how it's getting kind of brown? That is what's going to give the minestrone such a good flavor. So don't worry about that, but don't leave it too long because you don't want it to really get burned, right? And now when you look at it too, you may need to add a little bit more olive oil. I think I'm okay. Because once I start to add more vegetables, it'll get a little watery. So when my mother made minestrone soup, she used a leek like this. And I just started using it as well. They're not easy to find, but if you can, rinse them. And you know, this is about all you're going to use. So go ahead and cut that off, right? That's garbage. And then this is where the root went in. And so what I do is any, you know, loose material, sometimes you'll see a little dirt there like that, so you may want to rinse that as well, which I'm going to do. Then what I do is same thing, kind of like the carrot. I go lengthwise, and then I just slice it. It's all going to fall apart in the minestrone once you start to, you know, saute it and boil it. But I just think it adds a nice, unique flavor, and it's a really cool consistency. The celery, I'm using an entire bag or stalk of celery. Do a really nice job of tearing it apart, and make sure that you clean it really well. And then the very end, the part that sticks in the dirt, I just lose that. But the tops I keep because I like all this leafiness to be in my soup as well. So then once you cut those ends off, then again, I want this to be hearty. I put it all together and I just start kind of chopping it. And I'll go back a few times. I don't want it that big, but you can do whatever you want, right? The thing with minestrone is any vegetable that you want to throw inside of it, go ahead. There's no, you know, for me, it changes every time based on, I can't always find leeks. You know, sometimes I really like Swiss chard in there for a leafy portion of the minestrone soup, but it's hard to find. You can't always get it.
Oh, this is going to be a really good soup, I can tell. Oh.
I'm going to turn the heat down just a little bit. That's too big. A little zucchini. Look at how good that looks. It's not even soup yet. 2 cans of diced tomatoes. It's going to add some color, and it's going to just help the soup be more delicious. And that, you know how I was cooking it and it was starting to get a little brown at the bottom of the pan? Once you start to add this liquid, I want you to I'm using a little plastic bladed spoon. You can use a wooden spoon, whatever you want, but get a little bit of that up there. I want that. That's part of the flavor of the soup. Trust me, it's gonna taste amazing. Okay, so now I'm using some vegetable broth, low sodium, and I'm gonna use 2 of these, okay? And then I'm gonna fill one of these twice with water. So I'm cutting this in half. It's even lower sodium because I'm adding water. This is an organic one that I've used for many, many, many pots of soup, and it works out great. And this is 1 of 2 of just water. These are 32 ounces a piece, so you're adding 4 32-ounce containers of liquid. 2 of the vegetable broth, 2 of water. Before I add the last bit of liquid, these are Spanish lentils. You see I've got them in this basket. I rinsed them. I'm going to say that's probably 2 cups of lentils. I'm going to go ahead and put that in because obviously that's going to determine how much liquid I can get in there. And an hour of boiling won't, the lentils will be just right, no problem. So even if you put those in early, it's great. But the spinach, I'm going to chop up the spinach. That I'm not going to put in until like the last 15 minutes or so of the 1 hour of boiling. But really, it's just you want to fill it up. Now I don't want to go, I'm not going to get all 4 in there, so I'm going to stop right about there. I may keep this because I may add some as it boils away. But now, essentially, everything's there, right? And I'm going to just gently stir it. And what I would do now is just cover it because it's going to take probably a good, I don't know, 15 or 20 minutes to get this to boil. That's about, I don't know, 10 minutes or so. It's getting ready to boil. But you can see it starts to foam up, and I'm just sort of taking that spoon at the bottom, and you can sort of feel it kind of scraping all the goodness up that's the bottom. Oh, this is going to be, well, you'll see when it's done. You know what this is? It's a bowl of health. Well, there it is, starting to boil. So I'm going to lower the heat a little bit because it already spilled over, which means I got to clean the stovetop. Son of a gun. Give it a little stir. Now you don't want this to be a rolling boil. You want this to be a simmer, right? Now in a cast iron Dutch oven like this, the nice thing about them is that they really hold the heat, and it doesn't take, once it starts to boil, you can really turn down the flame. So you got to get it just right. I'm going to lower it a little bit more, and then I'm going to cover it, but I'm going to leave it off a little bit like this, because if you cover it too much, it's going to boil over again. And the reason I like to keep the cover on is, to me, in my mind, it keeps all the flavors inside. It doesn't boil off a little bit. A little bit, of course, is going to boil off. You can see right there. But just keep it covered. And now on low, I'm going to lower it a little bit more. 1 hour. So it's been about a half an hour. And you see it's still boiling. And the last half hour, I'm going to add the spinach. I just cut it up, chopped it a little bit, because we want kind of that leafy vegetable to kind of be throughout the minestrone. Really going to taste delicious. Don't need to stir it in, just cover it, put the cover back on, and let it boil. Okay, now we're an hour in, and you see the color change and how the vegetables all sort of settled in. The thing to do now is to put a little bit in a bowl, let it cool, do a little taste test on the, maybe a little more salt, maybe a little pepper, but I have a feeling with what I showed you to put in there, it's going to taste delicious. Like I said, this is 100% a bowl of health. Lou's minestrone. It's never quite the same, but it's always delicious. This is it right here, and this is the taste test. A little carrot, chunky carrot, and some lentils. Oh my gosh, that is so good. So the key with making any kind of minestrone soup, any vegetable that you want, doesn't matter. Mix it all in, boil it for an hour, let it cool down. It's actually better tomorrow than it is today. Enjoy.